Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
I'm going to show you how to make this Kindle sleeve. Perfect size for a Kindle or a little book or makeup or pencils, literally anything you want to put in this. There's a little button with a buttonhole. I'll slip my Kindle inside of it. It fits landscape and it also fits portrait. This is going to be made out of some full hexagons and some half hexagons. So I'm going to start by showing the full hexagon. So the first round is going to be 6 groups of 2 double crochets with a chain space in between them. So I'm going to start by making a magic ring. So I'm going to take the tail of the white yarn, make a cross over my finger, and then slide the crochet hook underneath the outside loop like this, and then pull up the inner loop like that. And then I can slide that off my fingers now, and now there will be a magic ring. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to work a stacked single crochet into the magic ring. So basically I'm just going to single crochet into the magic ring. And then I'm going to go into this outer loop of the single crochet here and work a single crochet into that. And that's a stacked single crochet. So in this pattern, all the stacked single crochets are going to count as a double crochet, and I'm going to use them to start each round. And then I'm going to work a double crochet into the magic ring. And then chain 1. And then I'm going to repeat this pattern 5 more times into the magic ring for a total of 6 of these. So basically I'm going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 6 times. So I just did 1, so I need to do that 5 more times. So I'm doing 2 double crochets, and then chain 1. And just keep repeating that. Okay, so I've done 5 of these double crochet groups, and I have 1 left. This one's going to be a little different because I'm going to use it to switch colors. So I'm going to do 1 full double crochet, and then on the second double crochet, I'm going to only do half of it. So I'm going to stop when there's 2 loops remaining on the hook, like this. And then I'm going to grab the dark blue yarn and use that to put that on the hook and use it to finish the stitch. It's important to make sure that all the tails and the unused white yarn are all in front of the project as you continue the next step. This is because there's going to be an ugly side and a pretty side of each of the granny squares, and the front is going to be the ugly side. Okay, and then using the dark blue, I'm going to finish this group, so that means I need to chain 1. And now there are 6 groups of the double crochet and chain 1 inside the magic ring. And then using the dark blue, I'm going to finish the round by doing a slip stitch into the first stitch, which was the stacked single crochet. And then I'm going to tighten the magic ring. So I'm going to pull on the white tail. The second round, it's harder to see because the second and the third round are both dark blue, but the second round is right here. It's basically made in groups that are worked into the chain space from the first row. So it is 2 double crochets, a chain 1, 2 double crochets into 1 chain space, into the next chain space, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. To start the next round, I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to do a stacked single crochet into this chain space right here. So I'm going to work a single crochet into that space, and then another single crochet into the front loop of the previous single crochet. If it's a little hard to see the dark blue yarn, I know. If you can't see it, go back and watch when I did it with the white earlier. So this stacked single crochet is going to count as a double crochet, and then I'm going to work one more double crochet into that chain space again. Okay, so from here, I'm going to be working 2 double crochets, a chain, and 2 more double crochets into each of the chain spaces from the previous row. So these 5 chain spaces are each going to have 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. So I'm going into the next chain space, working 2 double crochets into it. And then chain 1, and then 2 more double crochets. And I'm going to repeat that in all of the chain spaces. Okay, so now I've made 5 of these groups with 4 double crochets and a chain. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's also a half here from the beginning of the round. So now we're going to go back and finish that half. So that means I'm going to do 2 double crochets into this chain space and a chain 1. So that's 2 double crochets, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch to end this round. So I'm going to do a slip stitch in the first stitch, which was the stacked single crochet. The third row is worked into the chain spaces from the second row. So the third round is 7 double crochets into each chain space. To start the third round, I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to be doing 7 double crochets into each chain space. So like usual, I'm going to start with the stacked single crochet, which will count as the first double crochet. So I'm going into this chain space right here. I'm going to work a stacked single crochet into it. That's 1 double crochet. I need 6 more. So I'm going back into the same chain space for 6 more double crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to repeat that 5 more times. So the next single crochet, or the next chain space, is right there. Be working into that one next. Okay, I'm on the 6th group of the 7 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've done 6 double crochets here. I have 1 more to do, and I'm going to use the 7th double crochet to switch colors. So I'm only going to do half of it. So I'm going to stop when there's 2 loops remaining. And then I'm going to grab the unused white yarn and use that to finish the stitch. So I'm just going to pull it up and yarn over, pull through. And then I'm going to let the unused black yarn dangle in front of the square. Same with the rest of the unused pieces. And then I'm going to use this white yarn to finish the round by doing a slip stitch into the first stitch. The fourth round is the white one here. It is a single crochet into each double crochet. So 7 single crochets total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh is hard to see there, but it's right there. And then a double crochet into the space in between the two groups from the last round. So the row of white is just going to be mostly a row of single crochets. But there's going to be, single crochets over each of these double crochets, and then in each space here in between the double crochet groups, I'm going to work a double crochet there into the space. So I'm going to start by turning, and the first thing we need to do is a double crochet technically, but because this is the beginning of the round, the double crochet is going to be a stacked single crochet. So I'm going to go into this space in between the two groups here and work a stacked single crochet. And then I'm going to do single crochets all through the double crochets. So there'll end up being a total of 7 single crochets over each group of double crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm at the space in between the two groups of double crochets, so I'm going to work a double crochet into that space. And then I'll show you the start of the next group as well, just because it can be confusing to find the next single crochet. But basically I'm going to do a single crochet into the very next double crochet. Be careful that the double crochet you just worked isn't hiding the next stitch, but it's right there. So it might be useful to count the stitches. There will be 7 single crochets in between each double crochet. And yeah, just repeat that down the round. I want to point out the end of the round here. So I have 6 single crochets completed over this last group. And then the last stitch that a single crochet needs to be worked in is right there. It just looks a little weird because a slip stitch was worked into it to close the last round. So we're gonna have to work a single crochet into this one right there. And this single crochet is gonna be used to switch colors. So I'm not gonna finish all of it. I'm gonna stop halfway through. So basically I'm gonna pull up a loop and then stop, and then grab the light blue yarn, and I'm going to use the light blue yarn to finish the stitch. So I'm going to put that on the hook, pull through. Make sure that the unused white yarn is now hanging behind the work, and the tail of the light blue should be hanging behind as well. Try to keep this side looking pretty. And then I'm going to use the light blue to close the round. So I'm going to go into the first stitch of the round, which was a stacked single crochet, and do a slip stitch. And then you can see the difference between this one, which doesn't have the last round, and this one, which does. We're going to be creating corners in the last round. So basically, I'm going to be working single crochets along each edge, and then when I get to the middle of each one of these like petals, I'm going to do a corner. So I'm going to do 3 single crochets, and then in the 4th stitch I'm going to do single crochet, chain 1 single crochet, and then 3 single crochets, skip the double crochet stitch, and then 3 more single crochets. In the 4th stitch, do single crochet, chain 1 single crochet, and then 3 single crochets, and just repeat that down the round. So I'm going to start by turning the work. So now the ugly side will be facing us. And I'm going to start by working a single crochet into the first stitch. So the first stitch is actually the white one. Skip the light blue stitch. Working a single crochet into the white. So that's 1 single crochet. I'm going to do 2 more for a total of 3. And then on the 4th stitch, I'm now in the center of the petal. So I'm going to do a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, all the same stitch. And then 3 more single crochets, and then we'll be at the end of the petal. Okay, so now we're at the end of the petal. I'm going to skip the double crochet stitch and work a single crochet in the next one. And then I'm going to keep repeating that down the round. So I need 3 single crochets on this petal. That's 3. Now we're at the center of the petal. And then I'm going to make the corner. And yeah, just keep repeating that. Okay, I'm at the end of the round. You can see it looks like there's one more stitch left. There's one more stitch remaining, but that stitch was actually the double crochet from the start of the round. So we're going to skip that one and then work do a slip stitch to close the round. And that's how to make the square. So now I'm just gonna, to finish the square, I'm just gonna cut the light blue yarn, and then pull this through to fasten off. And then make 4 more of these granny squares for a total of 5. Okay, so we're also gonna need to make these half hexagons. I know the shape is a little messed up right now, but once this is all the pieces are put together, all the granny squares are put together, and they're blocked, the shapes will look much better. So once again, I'm going to start with the white yarn on the inside. So I'm going to make a magic circle, same as before. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to do a stacked single crochet into the magic ring. So I'm working a single crochet and then going into this outer loop and working a single crochet into that. And that counts as a double crochet. So because we're doing half the granny square, I'm going to only do half of one of these double crochet groups. So that's the 1 double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to do 3 of these double crochet groups into the magic ring. So the double crochet groups are 2 double crochets and then a chain 1. So I'm going to do 3 of those. So I'm doing 2 double crochets and then a chain 1. I need to do that 2 more times. So I have 3 of those groups done. I'll pull this tight so it's easier to see. There's the half at the beginning, and then 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into the magic ring to create this other half over there. Except I'm going to use this double crochet to change colors. So I'm going to stop halfway through it when there's 2 loops remaining on the hook, like that. And then I'm going to pull up the dark blue yarn, place that on the hook, and use that to finish the stitch. And then I'm going to pull on this white tail to close the magic ring. So the second round will have these groups of 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then 2 halves of those. So the halves each have 2 double crochets. So I'm going to start by turning, and then I'm going to work 2 double crochets into the chain space. So my first double crochet is going to be a stacked single crochet. And then I'm going to do one more double crochet into that chain space. So that's my half group. And then I'm going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the next chain 1 space. And then same thing in the next chain 1 space. 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. And then in the last chain 1 space, I'm going to do 2 double crochets once again to finish this off. The third round is going to be these groups of 7 double crochets, and then there's going to be 2 halves as well, and the halves are going to be 3 double crochets. So I'm going to start the third round by turning, and then because there's no chain space here, I'm going to work the 3 double crochets into the first stitch. So once again, the first double crochet is going to be a stacked single crochet. So I'm going into the first stitch, working a stacked single crochet into it. And then I'm going to do 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. And then I'm going to go to the next chain space right there and work 7 double crochets into it. Same thing with the next chain space, 7 double crochets, and then with the very last stitch of the round, I'm going to do 2 double crochets. And I'll get back to you once I finish that. Okay, so I just did the 7 double crochets here and the 3 double crochets in the very last stitch of the round. Don't worry about this not being a straight edge. We're going to line it later with the light blue, which will fix that. To start the 4th round, I'm going to turn, and then we're going to be doing a single crochet in each stitch and then putting a double crochet into the spots in between each group. So right there, there, and there. So I'm going to chain 1 and then start working single crochets into these stitches. So there should be 3 in the first group. And then we're getting to the space in between the groups. I'm going to work a double crochet into that. And yeah, continue that down the row. So the next group should have 7 single crochets, and then I'll do a double crochet, and then 7 more single crochets, and then a double crochet, and then 3 single crochets, and then we've reached the end of the round. So I'm at the end of the round. I have 1 single crochet left, and I'm going to use the single crochet to switch colors. So I'm going into the last stitch. I'm going to stop when there's 2 loops on the hook, and then grab the light blue yarn and use that to finish the stitch. And then for the 5th round, this is the last round, I'm going to create a corner at the start, which is single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, and then single crochet into every stitch except the double crochet, which you're going to skip. So there'll be corner, 2 single crochets, skip the double crochet, 3 single crochets, and then in the center of the petal will be a corner. So I'm going to do a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, and yeah, just repeat that. So I'm going to start by turning, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to start with a corner in the first stitch. So I'm going to do a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that stitch again. And then I'm going to do single crochets until I reach the center of this petal. So 2 single crochets, and then I get to the double crochet from the last round, which I'm going to skip. So that's 3 single crochets in this petal. I've now reached the center of it at the 4th stitch. I'm going to work a corner into that stitch. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet in that stitch again. And yeah, repeat this down the round. Okay, so I just created a corner in the last stitch, which is single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. And the last thing to do is to do single crochets with light blue across the bottom of this half. So I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna try to work single crochets evenly across the bottom here. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go into the edge. This is a little awkward to do because there's no obvious stitches, but just try to eyeball it so that this ends up looking even. You're gonna have to work over this loose white string here to hide it. And then that's the end of this half. And then make 1 more of these half granny squares for a total of 2. 1, 2. So I'm going to use a flat slip stitch to join these together, except it's going to be a little different because normally with a granny square, the side where you can see the stitches will be the front side, so this would be the front, but I liked this side better, so I made this the front. So it's going to be a little different. Instead of back loop only slip stitching, it's going to be front loop only slip stitching. But yeah, so I'll show you how to do that. So to make the joining as efficient as possible, I'm going to start here and join along this line. So I'm going to start with these 2 squares. Okay, so I have my 2 squares, and I'm basically going to go into the front loop on the right side from front to back, the front loop on the left side from front to back, and then do a slip stitch. So I'm going to start in this corner. I'm going to go into the front loop here, and then I'll go into the chain 1 corner, go into the front loop here, that, and then I'm going to take the light blue yarn, put that on the hook, and pull through. I'm going to make sure the tail is going to the back, and then I'm just going to keep repeating that down. So I'm going to go into the next stitch on the right side, it's front loop, and then front loop of the next stitch on the left side, front to back, yarn over, pull through. And just keep going. Hope it's easy to see what I'm doing, but front loop only, front to back on the right side, front loop only, front to back on the left side, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. And yeah, it'll end up looking kind of like that. and then I'm going to continue that down the edge. I also want to point out when you get to the place where you fastened off, so see I fastened off right there, just ignore it. So there's a slip stitch right here where I closed the round. I'm going to ignore it. So I'm going to go into this single crochet, that single crochet, skip the slip stitch, go into the next single crochet. Pretend it's not even there, and then you won't notice that the edge is uneven as you're attaching these together. So this doesn't need to be perfect, but when you get to the edge, try to make sure this corner lines up, or when you get to the end, try to make sure this corner lines up with this corner. Okay, and then those are joined together. And so now I'm going to go on to the next square. Okay, so I've just joined those two together. This fits in here like this. So the next two to join together are these two. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to go into the front loop of right beside the corner on this one. So there's a chain right there. I'm going to go into this one beside it. And then the front loop of this edge. And then just keep repeating the slip stitch down the edge. Just for some peace of mind, make sure that this is all fitting correctly as you're doing this. So I'm just going to continue what I've been doing along this edge, and I'll come back once I've finished. I finished attaching these squares together along this line. And now you can sort of see how this is going to come together now that we have this one big piece. So if I turn this over, you can see how this is going to fold. So these two side pieces are going to fold in like that. This piece is going to fold in. So all of these side pieces are folding in half. This. And then this piece is going to go in the center. This. See if it'll stay. Yeah. And so you can see all the ugly edges are hidden on the inside. Don't worry about this uneven edge. We're going to create a trim for the edge at the end. Yeah, so basically you can attach these lines together however you'd like. I think the most efficient way to do it is to start over here and go this way, and then up there, and then start under here, go along here, and end there, and then start under there, come along here, and then start in there, and go along there, and then do this one last. But you can do this however you'd like. One thing I want to point out, so I'm starting to attach these two together in the corner that I already did, and to make sure that there's no hole in the corner, it's important that I go into two of the stitches that we already went into. So I already went into both of the corner stitches, but I'm going to go into them again. So that's just the chain. Remember, the chain is the corner, so I'm going to go into this chain on that side, the front loop, and then the front loop of the chain on the left side, always from front to back, like that. And then I'm going to grab the new strand of light blue yarn, pull through. Just to make sure that the corner is properly sealed. And then I'll keep going into the new loops. See? And so there's no hole in the corner. Do the same thing if you're also ending at a corner that we've already crocheted into. You want to make sure you go into the same corner stitches again. So I finished attaching all the pieces together. Don't worry about it not being a square right now. It will become a square one. It will look more like a square once we add the trim at the top and block this. I'm going to create the border along the top now. This is basically going to be 3 rows of single crochet, except there is going to be a space created for a buttonhole. So I'm going to start by going to the edge I'm going to insert my hook into the edge and then pull up a loop using the light blue yarn. Make sure the tail is long enough that it can be woven in later. And then I'm going to chain one and then go back into that same stitch again to do one single crochet. And then I'm just going to do a round of single crochet across the top of the pouch. Okay, so I'm at the border in between two of the hexagons right now. And you can see I don't have any clear stitches to work with right here. I'm skipping all of this, the next obvious stitch being this one. And I'm just going to crochet kind of tightly over that to close that hole. See? And then I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to do that same thing every time I get to the border in between two hexagons. And see how smooth that makes it look? It'll become even smoother as we add rows of single crochet. When I get to the end of the round, I'm going to do a slip stitch to close, same as before. Okay, so the next round is going to be pretty much the same. I'm going to do a row of single crochets, except this time I'm going to stop in the center to create a buttonhole. So when I get there, I'll show you what I'm going to do. So to start this round, I'm going to turn. So now I'm working onto the inside of the line. And then I'm going to chain one. And then I'm just going to start working single crochets. Okay, so I made it to the center of the front. I'm just like eyeballing it here to figure out which stitch is the center stitch, but I'm going to say it's this one. And so I'm going to use a button about this big to close the pouch. Chain to the width of the button, or chain to the diameter of the button. So I'm going to stop, chain one, and then check that chain against the diameter on my button. So it should be a little smaller than the diameter of your button. So one chain will work really well for a tiny button this size. And then because I chained one, I'm going to skip one stitch and single crochet in the next stitch. So if you chain two, you're going to want to skip two. And yeah, if you chain three, you'll skip three. And then keep single crocheting through the round like usual, and then slip stitch to close the round at the end. Okay, so once the second round is finished, you can see there's a little buttonhole here in the center. And then to do the third round, I'm going to chain, turn, and then I'm just going to do one more row of single crochets all the way around. And I'm going to treat the chain like it's just a single crochet stitch. So I just finished the third round. I did a slip stitch to close it. And now I can fasten off. Now I need to attach the button to the trim of the bag. So I'm going to use the yarn to sew the button on. It's difficult to use, because of how small this button is, I need to use a small needle to thread the yarn through these holes, but I can't get the yarn through the eye of a small needle. So I'm using one of these like needle threaders, and I'm just going into the buttonhole and using that to thread the yarn through. Just a little trick. And then I'm going to line up the button with the buttonhole like this. And then go to the other side. Use these two tails on the button to attach the button to this side of the trim. Okay, and all it's left to do is to weave in all the ends and to block this to make it, to bring out the shape, make it more rectangular.